welcome to the Chronicles of Captain What? I am Matthew Smith, a master of all pixelated knowledge and pioneer of translation of mediums. As per usual, I am joined by my devoted student, Andy Barley. Today's topic will be conditions. So this one is a little different. We're going a little left field with this one.
A little left field, because I'm joining in.
I know, he's here for the start.
I'm here for the introduction.
He's here for the rant. Who my days? So basically, we have spent this season covering topics such as evolution,
Yes.
innovation,
Yes.
dimensions,
Yes.
and invocation.
My favourite one.
And now we are here with conditions. Now you're thinking, well, that's a boring word. The rest of them are all exciting and fun, and you've got this shitty one for the last time. Well, alright, listen to me a sec. You know how compilations work? This is kind of that. We're going to look at everything. Now that we know the links, we've clearly seen them, and we've been like, oh, shit, links! Now we can go and start discussing best case, worst case for us, best case, worst case for other things.
Yeah.
You know, alien life, that kind of idealism or complete dystopia, however it's going to play out, however it could play out. What do you think are the most interesting ones? Where do we go from here? I mean, I'm still cyborgs, you know. I'm still cyborgs. I think magic cyborgs has some definite potential to it, you know, because we
Magic
won't
cyborgs
understand
could be
how they work.
terrifying.
Would be terrifying. Shit my bridges.
Boy.
Yeah, thinking about, obviously people are the primary focus, but what do you think could rise up? Could be stronger than people? Dolphins?
Dolphins, maybe.
Whales?
Or do people just they get to the strongest and then they stop?
Well, it's you've got like a complacency. We were saying in evolution is a reaction to adversity. Well, there's no adversity, there's no reaction. If there's no reaction, there's no change. So, complacency. I'm quite comfortable where I don't need to do that, don't need go there, don't need be this, nope, not for me. That's complacency, when you're suddenly resistant to the whole idea, when you're not thinking about what could be, in both the good and the bad. It's not all sunshine and roses and cyborgs. Some of it is, you know, Planet of the Apes, or like The Matrix gone wrong. You know, what if the dolphins have us in a simulation? What if the whales are secretly building underwater utopias and Atlantis was there all along and it was theirs? It was never ours. We just claimed it. All these strange things, all these oddities. You must have some ideas.
You had to bring Atlantis into it.
Yeah, standard fare, bro. It's in the desert, by the way. Get digging.
Oh, it doesn't exist.
Fight! Nah, but I think it's in the desert. But there is a lot of evidence that it could be anywhere. It could not exist. It could be nonsensical. Who knows? Until we find it, we don't find it. It doesn't exist. It's in the desert.
For those of you that don't know, mine and Matt's arguments about the existence of Atlantis is what actually started the idea of this podcast.
I tried to tell him it was in the desert, and he was like, "What?" And I was like, "Yeah."
No, because it's a fictional creation of Plato. It was a creation of Plato in one of his work of fictions. It's true. It is true. He created. I can't actually remember the name of
what
this.
What were we saying
word.
about innovation? What were we saying about possibility?
Yeah, exactly. So that actually proves my point. Because the reason why he created Atlantis in this work of fiction, because Plato was he was pro-government. Yeah, he was pro-Senate, pro-government.
To an extent.
If he was alive today, he'd be QAnon.
Oh.
So he created this work of fiction to show how amazing the government of Athens were. And in order to do that, he created this fictional nation, which was well advanced, more advanced than Athens, but they lost a war against Athens because Athens had the Senate.
Yeah, that sounds...
That's where Atlantis comes from.
No, there's
Plato created it.
There's
to
definitely
prove this
merit
point.
to that, but at the same time,
Oh yeah, there's merits to it because
There's
that's the
more-
truth.
there's more than just Plato's account from, isn't there? There are a few more different people that speak about passing through or using it as a trade hub. Don't get me wrong, it's not detailed. There's not a lot of information there,
Yeah.
but it's enough to show that it's a shared experience.
Whose came first?
Whose came first? Yeah. Is it the delusion or the reality?
No, whose account came first? Was it the fictional one that Plato created, or was it everyone after him?
I'm not sure. I wouldn't
Plato's
know.
was first.
I wouldn't know though, because I wasn't there. But no,
The earliest account of Atlantis came from Plato.
The
But-
intrigue behind it is also the whole. If enough people believed,
I think me
In
joining in
some-
on this introduction was a bad
I
idea.
like it. If enough people believed that Atlantis may not have been real per se, but it was real to these people to the point where they knew it down to its very ecosystem kind of thing, very balance of people and things like that. You know, it essentially is utopia before utopia,
Yeah.
pre-utopia, utopia, Atlantopia. Bam, coin. Even if it existed or didn't exist, it's the prospect that it might.
That's the idea, yeah.
Yeah, it's that the power of that idea, the power of the
It's the promised land, isn't it?
well. I mean, it could have just been any other town that got hit by a tidal wave. That's what I'm talking about when I say Atlantis. It wasn't magical. There was no Poseidon. There was no like fancy wonder. No, it's just tidal wave. Done in the sand somewhere.
I would happily go to Atlantis if everybody looked like Jason Momoa.
Well, yeah, I think most people would. I don't think many people would leave. If it was anything like the fictional version, then we'd have to argue if it was even a human sin. But that's getting somewhere else.
That's
We're
for
talking-
another season.
Yeah, we're talking crazy.
We're talking humans at the moment.
But yeah, it's looking
So-
at examples like that and seeing how we can establish what an ideal world would be. What would an ideal
And-
world be?
We can use everything that we've discussed in the previous 4 episodes,
We are enlightened now.
and we can actually come up with a few possibilities of where the human race is going to be going.
I agree. I think some of them are a bit scary. Like you were saying about
And-
the uniform, everyone being the same kind of non-expressive,
see-
non-identifying,
I see
non-personal.
the pros and the cons of that. But yeah, that is honestly where I think the future is going.
I think it's going somewhere along those lines, but I think obviously you've got to question identity a lot, haven't you? You've got to be, do I want it to be the same or do I want it to be different? How do I identify at that particular point? Is the world so majestically perfect that I don't want to be an individual anymore? Is that even is it a loss at that point? Do you
Or
know
does
what I mean?
does individuality make the world imperfect?
Yeah, exactly. Does that add random elements of chaos where it's
Yeah.
unpredictable? People are irrational or can act with invocation on emotion or random superstition or something they heard down the pub last night kind of thing. If you don't have that measure, it becomes a bit messy, doesn't it?
A little bit, yeah.
I mean, Star Trek kind of just said, "Nah, we're done with all of it. We like." There's no racism, there's no sexism, there's no poverty, there's nothing. We've all just got the same thing because they were so profitable, wealthy and lucrative that there was plenty to go around. It was impossible to be unequal in any way. That's kind of cool, but then you think, what about other civilizations? There's still that power balance there, isn't there?
So this is basically going to be a huge discussion on if Star Trek is going to be the future.
Partly. That's one possible one. I mean,
Hopefully soon, because you know what?
I think it's legit as a possible one.
The Han Solo movie was made, and it was announced that Donald Glover was playing Lando Calrissian, and he was playing him as pansexual. And they asked him, why are you playing Lando as pansexual? And his answer was, when you're in space, there are so many different things to have sex with, why wouldn't you be pansexual?
Did you ever watch Torchwood?
I agree with Donald Glover.
Yeah. Did you ever watch Torchwood? Do you know who
Yes.
Captain Jack is?
Yeah.
Yeah, he fucked everything. Alien, woman, man, pet, didn't matter.
So which sci-fi property do you think is more likely?
That is a toughie. At the moment, the most likely is the most horrific.
Yes. Terminator. But that brings in your cyborgs.
It does, but for nefarious purposes. Because you see, we can't have all these wonderful things without someone misappropriating said wonderful things.
Yes. I agree.
It's kind of hard not to when you consider how many people there are, and we're still talking about identity and being individuals and things. Of course someone's going to go Skynet on us. Scary. The whole machine versus man. There's also the accidental Skynet theory, where we become so enamoured with the idea of exploring space that we make self-replicating probes.
Right.
Now, do you know what the problem with self-replicating machines are?
Well, they self-replicate. They just keep making more and more and more and more.
They would require something to make more, though, wouldn't they? They would
Of
still have to get the
course.
metal and the materials from somewhere to go through a conversion and so on and so forth. So essentially they would eat the entire universe. Yeah, it's terrifying.
I'm pretty sure that there's a comic book like that.
Yeah, probably. The whole self-replicating machine thing was a massive debate a few years ago, but it's still a scary thought. You know?
Yeah, terrifying.
I mean, imagine if machines can reproduce kind of thing. Suddenly it's like, when do they stop? When do they have the biological imperative? No, they have code. Is there a fail-safe in there to stop them doing it under certain circumstances? If it's written by humans, probably not. We wouldn't have thought of that at the time. And if we did, who's to say we got it right?
Yeah.
You know? Or it's all a bit more, oh, shit, that's possible. They could eat the universe. Consume everything. Every star,
That is horrible.
every planet, every moon, every element in
Yeah, because they'll have to just
space.
keep mining.
And they'd be replicating, so they keep getting further and further and further until eventually there's nothing and they come back.
Yeah. Well, as I mentioned in episode 3 about the being a massive DC Comics fan, they'll just keep going to the fan source wall.
Mm-hmm. It's pretty spooky. I mean, the idea of machines being against man isn't a new one, but it's still a scary one.
It is terrifying, especially when you think about how reliant we are on technology now and on our machines. I mean, if you think about what we've done today, I mean, I'm sat here in front of a laptop. You've got a laptop with you.
I have.
We've both got phones that do everything. When I turn the light on, I use my phone. I didn't stand
Saying
up and
earlier, I
switch the
consider
switch.
my phone part of my body. It's
Yeah.
evolved to be part of
Exactly,
my
I've
equipment.
got that
I've got a
white
lung,
thing.
I've got a heart, and I've got a mobile phone.
Yeah.
You know, they're
Yeah,
not
that's
that
it.
different.
And I mean, I have completely and utterly, and some people do think it's a bit like weird and they don't like it, but I have really embraced smart technology.
It's a good thing. I mean,
My watch does everything for me, and I've got that thing on the shelf up there. I don't want to say its name because it will switch on. But does everything for me, wakes me up, plays me music, tells me my day,
it's the very
tells me
crotch
the weather,
of
tells me the news.
Exactly. Even think about.
I get alarms. My phone, my watch will vibrate, and I look, and it'll say, "Okay, so you're recording Flandy on this day at this time."
Yeah. So I was 6 when the internet was invented. Right? I wasn't very old. Don't get me wrong, but I was old enough to know the difference when I saw it. You know, instead
When
of
was that?
1996.
Oh God! You know
Tim
what?
Berners-Lee.
I was 2 years away from leaving secondary school.
Yeah. So for you, it would have been even more impactful. But I went from having to send thank you letters in envelopes with stamps handwritten on fancy paper to my nan and my aunt and everyone else who dealt with me for my birthday and given me treats and wonderful things to be able to ring them and call them. And then that sort of going from,
Yes.
instead of ringing and calling, no, you can just you can do it any time now. You don't have to specially set aside a time to ring people because it's not habitual. Now
that's it. So I, as you know, I live in Brighton. I wasn't born in Brighton. I've been living in Brighton for 8 years. Last week was my birthday.
Happy birthday.
And I spoke to my parents who live 200 miles away, and I could see them. I spoke to them on the very same machine that we're using to record this. It was a live video feed, and it was perfect. There was no problems, no issues.
No, it's mad. It's like being there almost, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it.
I think that's the strangest thing. I mean, like I said, I was 6 when the internet came about, but because I lived with my nan, she was old school. I didn't actually embrace it till I started secondary school. So it wasn't until the school was like, you need to start doing this, which means getting on the internet and doing this for your homework and so on. And I'd be like, but I don't have the internet. And they'd be like, well, you can do it in the library then. I'd be like, nah, that's shit. So I went home to my nan. I was like, we need to get the internet for school because school says so. And she'd be like, what? That's preposterous. No. And then I'd be like, school said so. And she'd be like, fine. And we'd have some crappy dial-up where you'd have to not be on the phone at the same time. And you'd hear that.
I miss the dubstep noises of a dial-up modem.
Yeah, it was pretty badass. Iconic enough that I remember it to this day.
Yeah.
But going from that, like, into suddenly being completely connected, having everything at my disposal. I mean, I'm not going to advocate piracy, but if there was music at the time, it wasn't hard to get, to listen to be more part of, you know what I mean? If there was a film out, it wasn't hard to be more involved with it. It wasn't hard to suddenly have a bit more of a shared experience in the whole thing, a bit more of a explodey brain moment, where I'm suddenly believing that possible and impossible have changed so fundamentally that I need to redefine it all.
Yeah,
I needed to be thinking more. Yeah. But then at the same time, because of that, you know, instead of being in the library reading books written by people, I was reading Wikipedia written by people. So they weren't technically that different. It was more so the fact that I could type in anything and I could find out anything.
That's the thing.
I could go and look up a recipe for something to cook and it was there. In the same way I could look at the blueprint for something to build and it was there. And I had everything available to me.
Yeah.
Everything.
That's the thing for me. Because obviously, like, I'm a bit older than you.
That's why these discussions are good.
Yeah, and when the internet came in, like, I actually do remember the very first website I ever went on.
Did it take 5 minutes to load?
It took forever. And
the old Netscape communicator.
It was
the lighthouse, you know.
It was in school because, like I say, like, you know, it came into 90. I left school in 98, and so I was already I was suppose a bit too old to sort of not find this thing wondrous.
Yeah,
and so I was in school, and we basically it was in a maths class, and we used to take half an hour out to go and learn how to use the internet. Right, in a maths class, because the maths room was the only room that had the computer that was on the internet, the one computer in the whole school.
Yeah.
So I'm sat there with the teacher, and he was like, okay, so we'll look on a website. What website can you think of? And I was like, the only thing I could think of was a website for a band that I liked. That I remember seeing on one of the posters in a shop called Way Ahead Records. Oh God, Way Ahead, we miss you. Way Ahead Records, and I saw the poster for their album. So I said to the teacher, right, coalchamber.com. So he was like, okay. So I went on coalchamber.com, and if you don't know who Coal Chamber are, they were a new metal band. And it started off with this riff from one of the songs, and it was really loud. We had speakers on the computer. It was really loud, and everyone was
internet sounds are obnoxious.
And people this is the music from the website.
It was full blast or bust. There was no someone sitting there going, exactly. "Oh, let me just get this right for other people."
I was already considered to be the weird kid at this point because I listened to punk and heavy metal and things like that when everyone else was still listening to that E17 and fucking take that. So when this deep, dark, distorted guitar started, everyone's looking at it and all you heard coming over was "Don't fuck with me!" It's brilliant. And just watch it. I will never forget the teacher scrambling to switch everything off. Yeah, and it was so funny. And I wasn't allowed to use the internet at school.
Oh, I remember getting tricked once by my friend on a similar topic to play that Scary Maze game.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there and I was like, well, it's a game. I'm a master of video games. Obviously, I have to beat this. Yeah. Obviously, I have to get into it and it's a maze, right? Can't be that hard. So I sat down, I got close to the screen and I focused in silence. And I'm like, right, I got this. And I'm moving the mouse like proper. It's so quiet in the room. You can hear a pin drop. I'm moving the mouse and it's making a racket, but I'm like, no, I got this. And I get round that last bit, and then the lady screams at you.
Yeah.
I shit my pants to the point where I fell back on my chair a bit. I freaked out, just screamed back at the screen. Didn't know what to do. So I just turned the screen off and it was still going because the speakers were separate. So I was absolutely distraught by that. But the idea that the internet had all of these things at my disposal, the power you got as a human was like, oh no, yesterday we were people, now we're internet people, connected.
Yeah.
Is that gonna?
That's it. Yeah. Again, I'll bring it back to last Thursday, my birthday. The first message that I got was from one of my friends who lives in Australia.
Yeah.
The first message to say happy birthday was from Nines. We love you, Nina. Who now lives in Australia. But yeah, she,
that's how connected everything is, though.
That would have been an instant message. I was asleep when I got it, but it would have been an instant. The very moment that she sent
you press the button, it's done.
It's done.
It's committed to the world. It's a real thing.
So, to go to episode 2, Innovations.
It's a pretty big one.
What's next for the internet?
Well, they've already talked about the idea of, I'm going back to the Matrix again, but the idea of everyone sort of being plugged into the same thing, like a hive mind.
In recent news, Elon Musk has succeeded in putting a fully working microchip into a pig's brain.
That's crazy. I mean, we already have things like pacemakers and various other biological technology, but to make all technology biological, are we even going to need phones anymore?
Well, that's it, because everything, because me and Flo were talking about then, she didn't quite understand, and she was like, leave the fucking pig alone. I was like, but the thing is, everything because when I read the article when I was with her, and everything that chip does, my watch does.
Yeah. It's
basically a Fitbit inside your brain.
But it's regulatory as well, isn't it? If you think about,
I think you're right.
Let me scale it to people.
I honestly think you're right. I think cyborgs is the future.
Yeah, let me think about people though. We already have had a bit of a fascination with medicine for however many years. Different approaches, different trial and errors, different successes. The only thing that we can't do right now is automatically fix ourselves.
Yeah.
So imagine if that microchip can dispense painkillers like that.
Oh my God.
Imagine if that microchip can suddenly send a signal to your brain to nullify pain for a minute so you can get to wherever you need to go, or you can do whatever you need to do. Or it modifies something into another thing.
Yeah, if it
creates an illusion of something else.
If it read the neurosensor that activates when you're in pain and just automatically does it.
Yeah. Or even you could...
If that microchip was in my brain, it would permanently be on.
Yeah. I don't think you'd be able to not have it permanently on. Do you know what I mean? Because You'd have to switch it on and then put it in, kind of thing.
But then where would the painkillers come from? You're going to have to like get it refilled every now and then?
It would just have super concentrated, teeny tiny amount. Yeah, you could get them refilled if you wanted. Change them up into different things. Maybe have another one in the other side or whatever
See,
else.
and this is the thing as well, because things like that, or like, necessity becomes fashion in this modern day.
Oh, definitely.
If we have a look at what's happening at the moment with COVID-19, so face masks are mandatory.
Mm-hmm.
But as soon as face masks became a thing, like you had fashion brands releasing face masks. I saw in a shop a face mask being sold for £60 because it had a logo on it.
I spent £6 on mine because I thought it was going to be reusable, and the strap lasted one use. But my point on that is that these things.
I made one myself, but also the one that I do actually use was made by a friend's mum.
Oh no, I ended up having to buy
Which I think is in my
standard
pocket.
hospital boring paper, whatever they are, paper, cloth, both.
Yeah.
Cloth.
Plot.
Paper. Merge those words. But no, going back to the whole microchip thing, if we could, at the moment, the problem with that in people would be you don't know if the microchip could move, block something, get in the way. You don't know if the microchip would be, it might dissolve in your body just from whatever's around it. It might rot and go nasty, or cause something else to rot and go nasty and have adverse effects. We get over that, bang, done. Suddenly you'll have a microchip for everything. You've seen, like, one of my favourite video game series is Metal Gear.
Yeah.
They've got phones embedded in their inner ears so that they can just talk on a phone and hear everything with no outside interference or anything like that. No one can hear your phone call, but you can hear it perfectly fine. And it's built into your head. That's a bit crazy. Take that a step further. All right, we've got phones in our heads now. Right, we've got a microchip for medicine in our arms. All of a sudden, you'll end up in a scenario where maybe you have to perform emergency surgeries because a new bug has emerged that can rip your leg open or something. And if you don't treat it, bad things happen. I'm fantasising, obviously. But if
do you really want to talk about that shit at the moment?
If the no, I mean it's a bug, as in like a praying mantis. Or something.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, like evil, scary, monstrous thing.
Insect.
Yeah, imagine if, the insects rise up and start slashing us open, cuts and things like that. Suddenly we need a defence, don't we? So then that's
another possibility.
You get other things in your skin. You might have a mini surgeon that you can take out of your pocket, put next to the wound, and it just done. You might have a trauma remover that you can put over a bruise and it eases it.
Yeah.
You might have a bone realigner or something messed up, but these are teeny tiny things that you can't even. They're things, but they're not things. They're inside you.
Yeah. Well, out of like all the sort of innovations and all the stuff that we've talked about, but also
many rabbit holes.
That also could be out there. Like for me personally, the idea of nanites and as in not nanite, but the whole like nano sort of,
shit, son.
the nano repair thing that speaks to me, and I would love for that to be a thing because obviously with the problems that I have with my legs, that it creates a different.
Imagine being able to
it could either
painkillers and not be able to overdose. Just something as simple as that.
It could, and also like having sort of like nanobots injected into my knee, into my leg,
just directly there around to keep
and
everything
it will instantly repair the lack of cartilage that I have, which means I won't have to use my walking stick when I want to walk more than 20 minutes.
But then on top of that, going a step further, they might, because, think about medicine now. We have to perform it on each other, so it's an external process. I have to open you up, look inside you, and then fix the problem from outside.
Yeah.
They don't have that limitation. They're already in there. So they'll have, if you think about like intranet versus internet, if you're on the intranet, then you're already in on the company's web that's there all the time, or wherever you are as a web. That intranet, that basic system,
Yeah.
you can still take on the internet, but it's still isolated. So if anything goes wrong with the internet, you can have that as a fallback. Imagine if you can link your brain to one of these regulatory devices and it just uses your brain to fix it.
Amazing.
So when you have that pain electrical signal, it will notice that. It will notice where it came from, trace it back, and then go deal with the problem. Before you've even realised anything was actually wrong, it's already fixed.
Yeah.
Before you've even had the chance to go, ow, it's already repairing itself.
It's already done.
You can't tell me that won't lead to immortality eventually in some way.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Because if it's constantly repairing, it's like Wolverine, isn't it?
Well, cells
Lives
die.
forever
That's
because
the
it's constantly repairing.
Yeah, the regeneration principle.
There was a great, to go all nerdy again with comic books, but I think it was in one of the Ultimate X-Men comic books.
Ultimate. Sorry, I like that word.
Where I think it's Storm is talking to Wolverine about tattoos. And she's like, I can't see any tattoos on you. So, well, no, because a tattoo's a scar, so my healing factor heals it.
Mm.
So, if these nanites become a thing, and I get them injected into my leg, does that mean that I'm going to lose my tattoos?
I imagine they wouldn't be generic straight off the bat.
Because especially the one on my leg, because the tattoo on my leg, which is the same leg as that is dodgy. I fucking love this tattoo.
The most likely scenario I can think
it's
of
probably my favourite tattoo that I have.
Is when you get to that point where they're trying to repair.
Shout out to Rosie Quinn Tattoos.
Shut. But when they get to that point, like the external, internal thing, if they could get rid of it from the inside without necessarily having to bridge that gap kind of thing, without having to breach out of your body and start doing weird, scary... what's that film where the little robots get bigger and take over and he's like, ah! No, might have been The Mummy I'm thinking of. But
yeah,
Scarabs in The Mummy. Bit messed up, right? So, as long as if they're internal, end of. You could technically heal some of the scar tissue from the inside and things like that, but that doesn't hurt, does it?
No.
That doesn't tell you there's something wrong.
No.
It doesn't tell you that there's like an emergency and you need to address it.
But you'd never be able to get a new. You'd never be able to get a new tattoo.
No, I don't think so. I think that's logical because unless it was like a.
But I want
done,
a new tattoo.
No pain, just done. Or they can switch off that part of your brain.
Was it Starship Troopers where the tattoos were done by lasers, and it was just basically just done.
That's entirely likely. I mean, lasers are... We're still figuring out lasers and the stuff they can do.
Yeah, that's great.
Light is already pretty crazy, and we get it, but we don't get it. I mean, they just figured out that space is like a bubble. And the middle part of that bubble is the space we know. But the rest of space around it is like a whole... It's like no man's land kind of thing. Like the sea you wouldn't dare to breathe kind of thing.
Yeah.
There's just nothing. It's just darkness. It's just nothing space. The deepest, darkest space has nothing. Because that bubble has all the elements for it to keep doing what it does. Light can only travel through those various gases and so on and so forth, or through that space, or from one point to another. I'm not entirely sure on the rules, but it doesn't go in the dark part.
Right.
It gets gone. Like black holes. What is it, that super black that can absorb the light completely?
Yeah, I can't remember what it's called.
There was a guy who made the colour, and then there was a guy who took it further, and so on and so forth. But yeah,
because the guy who made it originally put such a huge price on it, and somebody else was like, okay, well, we're going to find a different version to make it cheaper so that artists can use it, because nobody can use it.
You bastards.
And, it's always the same thing. It's like Martin Shkreli.
Oh, he's a bad man. He's a real bad man. You're a bad man.
But yeah, because he brought out he bought.
It was that drug that was supposed to combat HIV or AIDS, and then he put it up 750% overnight so that he could price the poor people out of getting treatment for their lives. We're not just talking an inconvenience here.
Yeah, for the lives.
We're talking lives.
What a fucking arsehole.
So yeah, he deserves everything he got.
And more.
And then some. That's bad people at work.
That, I think, comes to another possibility for the future of mankind. Because there are more people like that.
Well, that's the
with power.
Unfortunate truth of the matter is when you have something and others don't, you feel you did something to earn it, to make you distinct from them, and you put yourself in a position where you're not like them anymore. That deliberate separation kicks in.
Any scenario where the future of mankind is utopian is going to be without politics.
Oh, 100%. Politics is a dead art.
For example, what I learnt this morning that I told you earlier about climate change and the right wing. So, climate change is notoriously at the moment anti-climate change is a right wing trait. That was not the case until An Inconvenient Truth came out and Al Gore was talking about climate change and how terrible it is. And a load of people, because he was left-wing, politically left-wing, right-wing politicians were like, okay, so I agree with him on this, but because he's left-wing,
we can't say
to disagree.
We can't possibly be seen agreeing with each other.
So that's when anti-climate change became a right-wing policy.
But then as well...
Because somebody that they disagree with about one thing agreed with them on something else, and they're like, oh no, we can't agree.
It's sheer greed as well.
It's
people
sheer fucking stupidity, because they are fucking the rest of us over.
Of course they are.
Climate change is a thing. It's real, people. I'm sorry.
Of course it is.
I hate to be the one. It's real.
If you're ignoring
climate and weather are different.
Ignoring a lot of science, and you probably shouldn't be listening to us, because that's my favourite thing. And you're bad. Trying to be nice here. My point is, there's always going to be that sort of self-serving group, isn't there? The people that believe they're different from the rest of everyone else. They don't always, but when they do, it's a terrible combination. It's a disaster.
That's the problem, because at the moment they have the power.
You can't have the power and have the power.
If we are realistically looking at what is the most likely scenario of the future of this planet and our species,
meteor, ice age,
it's not looking rosy.
No, it's not. 100%. The fact that we've been able to go, if we don't stop fossil fuels in the next 50 years, we're fucked.
Yeah.
Is
and the fact that no one's stopping it.
They're trying. I think the hardest part is, for you and I, progression is something that's inevitable. It's something that makes sense. It's logical. Yeah. It's a completely standard thing. But there are some people locked in a point of time. Like, things were good for them, they're rich, they've got everything they want, their house is perfect, their family's fine. There's nothing more that they seek in life. But they tell themselves that they've just got to keep getting more and more and more. There's no reason for it. It's a delusion. Why? What's the point? Do you know what I mean? You eventually have more than you need. And at that point, you've got to kind of go, well, what does it take before you kind of go, oh, hang on, this is fucked up. It's 200,000, 200 million, whatever it costs me to go from a digger to an electric digger so I can build my houses without fossil fuels. They're not even thinking about that.
Yeah. Because
they're probably selling the fucking fossil fuels. So it's a loop where they're benefiting themselves constantly. They're benefiting their environment. And because it's been like that for so long, the change is even more resisted to the point where stalemate.
Yeah, that's it.
That's when, unfortunately, you need people to die and generations to move on for those ideals to be, okay, yeah, he was a dumbass.
This is why I think my idea that I mentioned a few episodes ago about what I think the future is going to be I think it's going to be vegan. I think it's going to be non-binary. I think it's going to be uniform.
Yeah, non-identity. No, there won't be a need.
I don't think it'll be non-identity. I think people will have identities because they'll have their own personalities.
Will they though?
Yes.
I mean,
but I think when I say I think things are going to be, because I know what you're getting at with identity, it's about the whole non-binary idea.
Not necessarily that. More so like
because the vegan diet. I think that everybody is going to be a vegan in the future because they have to be.
Yeah, it's not sustainable for everyone to keep doing what they're doing.
Exactly.
We're kind of aware.
I'm not a vegan.
I'm going to eat meat substitutes. I'm still going to think I'm eating meat.
Yeah,
you know
exactly.
what I mean. If people have to,
for me, it's about the taste. Like whenever I hear meat eaters arguing with vegans and trying to be moral about it, like, no, I'm sorry, the vegans got you there.
There's only one argument, and that's extra methane. And if you can deal with that, you're fine. There won't be cattle then, would there?
The reason why I eat meat is because I like it.
No, same.
There's no other reason. I like it. I know that I can. I know I can live without it.
It's not my sole part of my diet, though.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
exactly.
I'm not going to sit there and be like, "What? What do you mean? There's no chicken?
Yeah,
well, I can't eat anything."
Yeah, that's it. I don't eat meat every day. To be honest, with living things, I eat more fish than anything else.
Good.
And most of the time, it's fish that I catch myself. And I know that to a vegan, that means fuck all. That doesn't make me any better. But
yeah, but we're not trying to be better than everyone else.
Exactly.
We're doing it because we believe it's the right fucking thing.
I'm just being me.
Yeah, exactly.
But,
I mean,
but
at
yeah,
the end of the day, your stomach is designed to be an omnivore,
yes,
to eat many things.
That's it, exactly.
Like, they talk about a balanced diet and how you have to get different vitamins and minerals from different things and different fruits and vegetables. How the fuck can you get that in one thing?
Yeah.
You can't. Impossible. Even a vegan can't get
that's
all of
like
their nutrition from one area.
Huel.
Even if
have you seen them? Huel?
I haven't, no.
It's a nutritional drink, and apparently it's a substitute for meals.
Yeah, sounds about right.
And it's just this like beige, horrifically tasting drink.
I wouldn't be surprised. Like,
fucking horrible.
It'd just be like multivitamins mushed up. As long as the
disgusting.
fuel is there, the fuel is there.
It can get chocolate flavour, and it doesn't taste like chocolate.
The problem is, at the moment, we all have our own sense of identity. You know I like things like curry. So when I'm thinking about food, I'm going to default to what I like.
Yeah, of course.
That's just standard brain. Doesn't mean there isn't an alternative where both sides can win.
Yeah.
For example, a vegetable curry. Love it.
This is where the idea of...
But you have to know it exists or could exist.
Synthetic meat, like lab-grown steak. I have no problem with trying that. Like I've told you before, I've actually signed up to take part in the trial.
I think the only downside is supposed to be expensive, and I'm poor. But otherwise, I'm all in. You know?
Well, that's it. Yeah, well, sign up for the trial means I get it for free. But But the thing is, that the only reason why it's expensive at the moment is because it's so rare. Because
it's prototype.
Because people are like refusing to sort of no, I don't like that. Embrace the future. Yeah, I think this is kind of where we're going with this season.
Yeah,
embrace the future.
Basically, look at everything. Look at all of the little things. You know, you can look at humanity as just static. Oh, this is how we are now, and this is how we'll always be. Or you can look at things like technology. You can look at the fact that we are different yet the same. You can look at the fact that we all believe different things, but agree on certain things as well. That consensus is the most important thing. Because that's the truth.
Yeah, even in my lifetime, I have seen huge changes.
Of course.
Okay, so for example, 2012, great example.
Wait, the end of the world? Nah, good.
So 2012 was a huge year for me, massive change in my life. Because that was the year that I moved from Derby to Brighton. The same year, huge year for this whole country, because that was the year that gay marriage became legal in the UK.
The fact that we have to think back and be like, shit, that was 8 years ago.
And and like
should have been like that all along, really, shouldn't it?
10 years ago, gay people weren't allowed to be married.
I know. It was only, 1990 that they abolished marital rape as they made it a crime. Do you know what I mean?
That's in our fucking lifetime.
That's how antiquated we are, though.
That's in your lifetime.
That was the year I was born.
That's your lifetime.
Uh-huh. But that's
I
how...
was born in 82.
But think about how, like... Basically, it doesn't come down to the people making the decisions for the people. You could argue they're not really people. You could argue that there's always something that supersedes them being people. There's something first, something more important. And that's kind of the issue we got where we are. You know, talking about things like being able to think about different dimensions, being able to work together and do it. Sure, it's definitely a utopia, an ideal scenario. But look at something like a fly versus an ant. The fly accomplishes a fair bit, goes around eating shit, reproduces, makes some maggots, more flies. They're kind of a pestilent thing. They do some stuff, but they don't do it to the best or for any real goal other than just straight up survival. Whereas the ant doesn't give a shit about who the ant is. There is no individual ant. There's only the hive, the colony.
It's all about the colony.
I'm not saying we should be like that either, because both of those extremes are messed up. Having that middle ground, though, is really not that difficult. You know, drawing a line under self-serving and socially serving. You know, good inventions sell themselves, don't they? You don't need to piss about marketing or anything like that. You
That's
don't
it. To quote one of my idols, heroes, and man crush, Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
He himself said, "We can never move on until we realise that our way to govern is not the only way to govern."
No, for sure. I mean, you can sit there and you can say, "No, I hate capitalism. Oh, I don't like communism. Socialism's for wusses." Find something better.
Yeah.
Compromise. What elements of those are absurd? You know, I like parts of capitalism. I hate capitalism. I like parts of communism. Don't like communism. And I like parts of socialism. Don't like socialism. Why? Because they're too rigid. And the point is that compromise is just a case of finding what would work and what won't work.
So are we heading towards a more politically fluid existence as a race? Because I don't
Either
see...
that or a politically silent one.
Yeah. You see, I don't see evidence of either at the moment. You've got the far left, which I am left wing, and I happily use the far
Discussion
left.
is good. Talking about things is good.
I happily use the phrase far left to
total freedom
to
isn't
describe
necessarily
people,
good, because that's where we have to listen to people being racist on the street.
Exactly. Well, that's it. Because you've got the far right and you've got the far left. To me, they're the same.
They are.
I disagree with the far left. I disagree with the far right.
I disagree with extremism. It's the same thing.
Exactly. That's exactly.
I wouldn't like a Christian. I don't hate Christians. I have nothing against them. But if they're being oppressive, if they're inflicting people with pain or torture to merge and do what they say they do, they're an extremism. In the same way that if I'm sitting there going, I hate the government and I do a Guy Fawkes, I'm an extremist. They're all messed up. None of them are right.
You kind of look like Guy Fawkes.
Give it away.
But yeah, I mean,
November,
with the far, isn't it? With the far left, I mean, you've got they're the people who are using their freedom of speech to stop others from using their freedom of speech. The same as the far fucking right. And so, like, when it comes to moving forward politically, I don't see that happening anytime soon.
No, we're at stalemate.
Yeah.
The only way we move forward from here is to acknowledge that some people chat shit, that some people aren't worth listening to. And making that distinction is hard, isn't it?
Yeah, this is where my idea of the uniform future, because obviously that the whole idea of non-binary...
Fit in or fuck off.
Yeah, well, that's it. The whole idea of non-binary is such a sort of hot issue at the moment. Personally, I do think that there are 3 genders: male, female, and non-binary. Transgender, to me, in my opinion, is not a gender, because if you're transgender, that means that you are moving from one to the other.
Yeah, well, scientifically, obviously, it poses problems and things
but
like that. But from a personal basis, I don't give a fuck what you are. It's not my business.
And that's it. That's the point.
I don't mean that in a nasty way.
This is when I say...
I just don't have time to tell you you're wrong, because I don't know if you're wrong.
And that's exactly it. This is why I say that I think the future is non-binary. Because it's going to get to the point where nobody fucking cares anymore.
No,
and
no
that's
one
how
should
it should be.
Yeah.
Nobody should care about your gender. Gender should not mean anything.
Even
at
looking
all.
at things like, you look at casual racism in things like TV and media, and then you see it in real life. It's the same distinction as if you witness a mass murder in a film and then you see it in real life. One is very fucked up. The other is a fiction.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I like that.
I don't agree with any kind of racial distinction. I'm not saying you can't have culture, you can't have identity, but it shouldn't affect your rights as a person.
No, of course
because
not.
you're a fucking person.
Yeah.
Guess what? We have lungs, we have hearts, we have blood. If I was flayed, I'd end up looking the same as someone else who was flayed and had no skin. As fucked up as it is, we're the same. Like, that's like saying, if you're trying to force a difference or anything like that, it's because not because you believe that, one should be better than the other or anything. It's because you believe you're better than someone else. It's a personal issue. If you're pursuing racism, you're the problem.
But that's the thing, though, because there's so much of this happening at the moment. If nothing changes now, the only way the future will be exactly as it is now.
It will just be a bit more behind closed doors, like the Cold War, where everyone hates each other and is secretly trying to kill each other, but no one admits it because it's not right.
That's terrible.
Yeah, it's fucked up.
That's terrible. Let's go back to a conversation that we had when we weren't recording. I would much rather live in the Logan's Run universe.
Yeah, I agree.
At least then you get to wear them snazzy outfits.
Balance is balance. Extremist is extremist. Like, one is livable, is achievable. The other is ridiculous for the sake of being ridiculous.
Yeah, that's it, isn't it?
You don't see people arguing about, like, I'm trying to think about...
I think you see people arguing about everything.
But that's the thing. It's because...
The smallest thing.
It's because people listen to them. They give them a voice. You know what I mean? Things like Flat Earth, which are just outright preposterous. I'm sorry. Things like they're just arguments for the sake of arguments. They're invented
theory.
Just to argue.
Yeah, my theory.
And cool, that's good for the sake of discussion. But to then take it seriously, try and make other people believe your bullshit.
The Flat Earth Society, the Flat Earth Society Twitter handle was created as a joke. And I have a theory, and I've said this to you before, that I don't think anybody actually does believe that the Earth is flat.
No, of course not.
It comes back to this whole I want to be different thing.
It's that, and it's the fact that I don't accept you're 100% right. I don't accept fact. I believe everything is subject to opinion or change or thing. Once you get to that point, you just can't discuss anything anymore.
Yeah, and that's where we're at.
Yeah, they can't sit there and discuss things like class disparity and how rich the rich people are and how poor the poor people are. It's still that same old rich people, poor people.
I saw something the other day about how it is now possible to be too poor to be poor.
Yeah, it's absurd. It's absolute. The disparity
we've got to that
the point where it's just straight inhumane.
Yeah, we've got to that point where you can be too poor. You cannot afford to be poor. And there are people out there like that.
Yeah, it's fucking tragic, man. But then you've got people who are so rich, they're sitting there paying everyone to do everything for them with no thought, no conscience, no nothing, no consideration of any other human beings. And because they're in that state, and because the people around them are making money, who's going to call them out on it?
Yeah, exactly.
Who's going to turn around going, no, you're being a sport rich prick? Because they don't have any friends for that contrast.
Yeah.
They don't socialise.
That's a very, very good point. Because if I am being an arsehole, I have my friends to tell me you're being an arsehole.
You should do. In the same way, if I were to start yelling racist remarks on the street, I expect to be punched in the face.
Yeah, of course.
I don't expect to be tried or anything like that. I don't expect to be given that much time. I get punched in the face and I learn my lesson. And if I don't learn my lesson, then I get punched in the face again. And I get punched in the face again. Until eventually I learn my lesson. And if I don't, natural selection.
Yeah. And how much does that play into the future? Obviously, we're supposed to be talking about natural
selection is interesting. That's basically evolution in its most favourite form. It decides what is and isn't worthy. But look at us now. I don't think natural selection really applies, does it? Because we have imbeciles in our society and we have geniuses in our society.
Have our innovations got to the point where natural selection doesn't matter anymore?
Yeah,
because
I think so. Well, I think it has such a minuscule effect.
Yeah, like you've got somebody who I'm going to go and walk into the road because cars will stop when they see me. Car doesn't stop, but then that guy's life gets saved. But then, I can do this as much as I want because of modern medicine.
Yeah, exactly. You get people. I mean, like we were saying about potential immortality. Imagine how much of a. If you think we're pricks now, or if I think we're pricks now, imagine when we're literally untouchable.
Family Guy did a great episode like that, didn't they?
I think so. I can't remember.
It was like the second or third episode, maybe the first episode.
But yeah, it would just be horrifying. Like, we're designed to be limited because it's the best kind of way to be. How could we focus on our impact on the world if the world's changing too fast for us?
Yeah, man.
And equally, if we can't see any change, why are we going to put that effort in the first place?
That's terrifying.
I know. So yeah, the spooky thing's out of the way. What would be the best case scenario, though?
The best case scenario? Well, utopia, innit?
Yeah, exactly, in a way.
I suppose H.G. Wells' The Time Machine, but without the Morlocks.
Yeah. But even then, like, it's...
But even then, they don't have books and they don't have knowledge.
It's not that far away from the worst case scenario.
And what is utopia? Because what is utopia for you might not be fucking utopia.
Well, utopia is more or less just a metaphor of idealism for me. It's whatever is perfect at the time.
Yeah, but that's the thing. What's perfect for you might not be perfect for me.
No, for sure. But for me right now, if I were to think of a utopia, it would be something where there is no distinction between...
If we think about something right now that I would absolutely love, like both of us would absolutely love to happen right now. Okay, so like somebody stood next to me, just keep pouring wine into this glass so it's never empty. Would you benefit from that?
No, but I would benefit from seeing you benefit. Do you see what I mean in a way? As long as you're not taking the piss, and as long as you're not sitting there going, look, I don't have to do my wine, I've got this dickhead to do it for me. As long as it's actually something that's necessary in a way to you, how can I be anything but happy?
That makes me sound like an alcoholic.
No, he's not. He's alright. He's a good boy, really.
I just like a drink.
But yeah, it's the fact that they're so close with just one little thing over the edge that's probably the scariest thing.
Yeah.
What's the difference between utopia and dystopia, really? It's just what end of it you're on, really.
It's the person who presses the button, then.
Yeah, which is why the main thing we should be doing is fucking making use of our nuclear weapons, not firing them at people, not fucking shooting them at anything, and just take them apart. Make power. It's power. Yeah. You're only going to sit there for years and 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 potentially go wrong.
But the problem is, like, for that to happen, it will take one country to say, right, we're going to dismantle our nuclear weapons. As soon as they're dismantled, another country will use them.
But then you have, like,
another country will use theirs. Because that's the problem.
There are enough ways to shoot down a nuke.
That is the problem with the way that the world is run at the moment. Because that's the problem with politics. Because it's all about power, and it shouldn't be about power.
Well, it's more so the fact that if I don't like utopia. What I hear, I can burn the house down, kind of thing. I can take everyone with me.
That's utopia. Utopia is living without politics.
Yeah, in a way, we don't need them. The politics are just there to tell us how we should be thinking or shouldn't be thinking. Left wing, right wing. Guess what? All of it has merit.
I'm a little bit libertarian when it comes to politics because I think that the government does too much. They do a lot that they shouldn't.
I think the government is just a farce. It's ridiculous.
I think that this is where a lot of sort of conspiracy theorists fucking hate me because I think that the government should be faceless.
I think the government should just be like jury duty.
Interesting.
You're told to be fucking president for 6 months. And then you have to do it. And if you fuck up, you get punished. And if you do right, you get a little reward. And that's it. There's no financial incentive. There's no money in politics, and there shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Because the moment you start messing the money, well, now it's a job, and now you can lie to yourself and tell you you're doing your job really well.
I don't think one party should be in charge, because each party represents a different group of people. So why is it that, like, at the moment...
They should all be having to work, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, in our country at the moment, the party in charge, they don't represent us.
They don't represent anyone.
They don't represent... They do represent...
They represent the 1%.
Yeah, they don't represent us.
Definitely not.
And they're in charge. They've been in charge for 10 years.
Yeah. But then, when it came to the democracy side of it and the voting side of it, we've still got first past the post. So it didn't fucking matter. Because they were the majority.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The whole thing is so messed up to the point where unless we destroy it and start over,
exactly,
we're just stuck in the same cycle of bullshit.
Do you think that'll happen?
I hope so. I genuinely hope that this whole recent issue with our government shows how much, like, the damage they've done.
That's Bruno, just in case you wonder what that noise is.
The damage they've done is going to last for generations. It's not something that can just be mopped up or anything else.
Yeah.
None of those sons of bitches are going to be held accountable. Not one.
No.
They're not responsible for their actions. At which point, why are we responsible for ours? Don't get me wrong. I know why I'm responsible for my actions. Because it's right. If I fuck up, if I do someone wrong, I'm responsible for that in the same way as if I do right and do good. I'm responsible for that because I did it.
Yeah.
It was my choice, it was my influence, it was me. But you can't just take the good and not take the bad. It's important to learn from mistakes, right? So when you have what we have now, which is a fucking club of idiots, basically, who just sit there and go, oh, I need some money. Why?
It shouldn't...
Felt like it. Bored.
It shouldn't be a popularity contest either, that's the thing.
Nah. I shouldn't know who any of those motherfuckers are. It should
exactly.
be like jury duty. Exactly. One day I get called up and I've got to do it, and, you know, sure, I tell you my name, you see my face, because I'm in charge at that point in time, but then I'm done, and someone else comes along. And if I'm shit at the job, I should be able to go, I'm really sorry, I'm shit at this job. I'd like someone else to sort of step up early, or I'd like to go through the process early. Do you know what I mean? Admit your fucking mistakes, step down, fuck off.
And that's the problem. That's the problem. They never do.
No,
especially the orange twat over the pond. Okay, we're getting...
Nah, we're getting a bit. But what the point is, there's no accountability.
I didn't want to mention that, fuck.
So unless we take responsibility for what we do, like literally, I'm not asking to take responsibility for what the guy next to me does, but I'll take responsibility for me. Because it's my life, isn't it? If I choose to be a fucking psychopath, I chose that. In the same way that if I choose to be a decent guy, I chose that. My choices should be reflected, and they should be punished or appropriately rewarded, kind of, or reinforced is the right word. Because rewarded makes it sound like I'm after that cheeky cash. I don't give a shit about that. Money doesn't mean anything. It doesn't have any inherent value. It's a nothing. It's what you buy with money that matters to you.
Yeah.
It's the, like, you get paid and you think, ooh, I've got X amount of numbers. Do those numbers sit there and make you go, yes, it's just what I always wanted? Numbers. No. You think about what they're going to translate into.
Yeah, what they're going to become.
So cut the fucking middleman out. Get rid of the idea of fucking sitting there on numbers and numbers that mean nothing. Look at Jeff Bezos. Guy is absurdly rich. I'm not even absurdly rich.
I know.
There'll be a point where he could legitimately try and take over the world through financial means. Probably already is, to be honest. But that's fucked up. That's completely wrong. He shouldn't have that much power. I don't care how hard he worked, because no one should have that power.
Yeah.
We're all doing it for each other, so we should all be part of it.
But not all of us are.
Yeah, well, fuck them off to the moon, you know?
Or into
Get
another
gone.
dimension.
Or dimensions, yeah. Maybe there's a parallel universe, like in Star Trek, where they've got evil goatees and shit. And there's actually, like, been a mix-up between our government and the paranormal.
We've already got evil goatees, so
but maybe we're the good evil. And there's the evil good that don't have goatees and sit there clean shaven with short hair and all that. Like, no, order must be restored! None of that. Thanks. But yeah, talking about potential, there's the fact that we can sit here and think about multiple ways and how you would go about it and stuff like that.
For hours doing this, and we've almost been talking for an hour.
Good, we're doing well then. But having that, the fact that I'm a bit of an idiot. You know, I'm not particularly educated in many things. I know stuff, but not many stuffs. I'm not a professional in anything. I'm an average guy. For an average guy to talk to someone and go, actually, maybe a potential solution could be this. Maybe a potential solution could be that. The fact that I'm trying is a pretty big thing.
Yeah.
Now imagine if Jeff or Boris or whatever motherfucker's in charge are actually trying to do something good. Boy, the results would be amazing. They're just not. They're just not interested in good or anyone else. The very role of politician is professional liar, isn't it? Professional deceiver, professional spinner.
This is why I think we can sort of come to the conclusion that the most likely of all of the potential futures is the worst possible one. Yeah,
it's kind of sad. Unless we start a revolution or something, but that's a bit excessive. You know? So much effort, so long. Involves an opposite. I can't be.
To be honest, I will be perfectly honest with you. I think a revolution is needed, but I don't think
it's what kind of revolution, though.
I don't think it's us that needs to do this.
Nah, we can't. It wouldn't matter.
You're almost 30.
Yeah.
I'm almost 40. If things are going to change for the better, for the best possible potential future to happen, it needs to be the young ones.
Oh, for sure. And it needs to... I mean, what is it?
And I think
Greta.
it is starting. Greta.
She's brilliant. Like, don't get me wrong. She's young. She's not going to be able to solve every problem in the world. And she's got a tough uphill fight.
Yeah,
but she took it on anyway.
That's it. All I've seen is people give her shit. And she did not falter fucking once.
Nah, stood strong.
As soon as somebody gives Donald crap...
Oh no, it wasn't me. It must have been my executive piece of shit guy from the last government.
He lies his way through everything. Like, he gets one thing, like, John Oliver made a joke about him having tiny hands. Like, the next big speech he made was about how his hands are masculine and manly. It's like, you're a fucking idiot.
I think you've got to look a bit deeper than that and just go, how comfortable are they with themselves? How secure do they feel? Because I imagine there's so much insecurity.
Yeah, of course.
There's so many messed up
you can tell with him.
You
can tell with his wife, man.
It's not just him though. It's a lot of people in that role because you have to take on a bit of a sociopathic role to manage society, don't you?
Of course, you have.
It's almost like a given. That's why it should be short term.
This is one of the few good things that I'll say about David Cameron is he went into that job with brutal precision. He had to do horrible things, and he knew he had to do.
I don't like him, but I've got nothing bad to say about him.
Things.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, he knew he had to. He had to do it to do his job, and to him, it was a job. And he doesn't care about going down in history, where the fucks at the moment do. And
right now,
that's the problem.
Money's been proven to be more important than lives, and that is the most fucked up thing. When you're literally having to sit there and argue whether or not we should have taken various measures or covered various things before. No, money's more important than lives. Get the economy going again. Keep us rich people happy. That's more important than you poor people could just go die, you know? It's fucking mad. Mad. Unless you can afford not to work, guess what? You've got to be back at work.
But I think this revolution that needs to happen for the utopian future, for the best possible evolution, and for all of the innovations that are happening to actually make a difference and to be worth the work that's been put into them. And I think this is where I think the invocation side.
Yeah,
this is where episode 4 comes into
That's
play.
why we're talking, isn't it? We're trying to will that feeling of needing to change.
Because
things.
all it will take is for somebody to listen to us rambling on about this and go, I could do that.
Yeah, exactly. There's people out there that are ridiculously clever.
Because
that have
at
the ability to solve problems.
I think this is what I'm going to take away from this discussion is that because at the moment the only possible future that we can see right now is terrible. That doesn't mean it's the only possible future.
It's just obviously the most prevalently seen, isn't it? Because everyone's sitting there talking about how horrible the future's going to be, so no one's actually facing the fact that we can change the future now. Everyone's kind of like, it's like when you've got that brown envelope in your door and you're like, fuck, I know that's a bill.
Yeah.
I'm not opening it. Nope, never happened, doesn't exist. You're going to deny that forever.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Are you going to just completely put your head in the sand and ignore the fact that there needs to be a bit of a change?
Or you're going to open it and realise it's a tax rebate.
Yeah, exactly. You could be pleasantly surprised. You could end up having an idea that ends up being and solves everything. Well, like we were saying about innovation with the internet, that didn't just solve one problem or two problems. That solved all of it. It changed everything. The whole landscape of everything changed. The balance of everything changed for the better. You know, now we don't have people doing fucked up things in other countries, murdering and killing, because we know.
Yeah.
There are people who know that's fucked up and will tell us.
Yeah, the first ever video call that I did was with my parents when I was in Australia.
Yeah, exactly.
And that was horrible. That was so grainy and like
yeah, you get a bit of delay, a bit of lag.
It was
But
great.
the change is maddening. You know, the fact that at some point, somewhere, at some point, I could talk to someone I admire, or I could talk to someone who can make a difference, or something, just by sending them a long worded message or something. You know, sure they might not read it, but I can still send it. It's still a thing. It's a bit weird, isn't it? That's how easy it is to communicate.
And that's it. Yeah, I mean, I've had conversations with famous people on Twitter, and
yeah, precisely my point. Because people are people, aren't they? Like once you bridge that
and I
initial
think
social crowd,
that's what needs to be reminded. Really, that people are people, and whether you're in charge, whether you're not in charge, whether you're
not
celebrity,
infallible. Don't expect to be
all
perfect.
the same.
You're gonna make mistakes. You should learn from your mistakes and go, you know what? Actually, I fucked up about X amount of years ago. But as a result, you know, I took a bit of a hit. I wasn't particularly pleased. Emotionally, it was difficult. But I realised I've got friends, I've got society, whatever bollocks comes out of it. Do you know what I mean? There's always like a plus, always a win at the end of it all.
Yeah.
I lost my mum when I was 16. It was horrible. There was a very messed up history, which I'm not going to go into. But if I look back at it and I go, oh, I'm a victim, I'm never going to have a life like everyone else because of my childhood, who am I hurting?
Yeah, it's yourself.
Exactly. Only I'm losing out. So I then have to go, actually, I had a unique experience. I had something not many people can relate to. And I learned lessons that not many people would have learned at my age, kind of thing. And I can be proud of that. And I can be like, actually, the reason I can't be asked with any kind of nonsense or inequality or anything like that is because I learned pretty early on people are people and are subject to flaws. You know? Even the people I love most are subject to being flawed.
Yeah.
Admit it. Get over it. Get better. Not hard, is it?
Okay, so episode 5 of season 1 is the last episode. So to summarise the whole season, I'm going to give it over to the captain himself.
Oh, I'm honoured. I'm honoured right now. I think the messages are pretty clear. I mean, obviously I'm ethically biased in some regard. I'm definitely liking the utopia thing and all the left-wing love and all that. But the main lesson is when you look back at things like evolution, innovation, invocation, all the things we talked about, their scale is kind of interesting, isn't it? You can do stuff on the smallest scale that has the biggest impact, and you can do things on the largest scale that have the smallest impact. They're not necessarily the same thing. If I sat there and changed my biology, it does nothing right now. But over time, over years, difference, changing. Those people coming up with medicines, changing stuff. Those people coming up with new ideas, new practices, new habits. The fact that meditating is a mainstream thing now, that people are all aware of the ability to do it. Like, that's great. That's progress. Just keep doing it. Keep getting better. Don't settle. Don't be happy with the way things are. Look at what can change. Wonder whether it should change. And then question if it's possible. Because a lot of the time it's more possible than you think. It's more of a thing. It's tangible. It's a reality. And then me as an individual, I can think those things and come to the conclusion something's impossible. But then we team up. And suddenly what's impossible for me is not impossible for our combined force. And we team up further. And we cover our weaknesses. And we realise our strengths. And we can work to it. It's good. I like it. So in essence, we're just people. We do good things. We do bad things. But we're also completely subject to chaos in every form. Emotions, instability, rash actions, all that. Admit it, you can fuck up. You'll be a lot happier fucking up. You might look forward to it. You might learn from it, you might grow, you might develop something as a side grade to something else and be like, actually, that's not a side grade, that's an upgrade. I just didn't think of it that way at the time. I was going for one thing, and as a byproduct, I got something else, something better. Just try, just do, see what happens. Well, most things, don't do all things. Morals, kick your asses. That's my son.